Computer crash. Okay, great. We're all for, right? Computer crashes. So we'll move on, and number 3 is changes or additions to the agenda. I don't think we have any. All right. Item 4 is consent agenda. We can make it.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
All right. Second, please. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? No discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, personnel. Accept resignation of Jeremiah, is it Alvarez, CVA teacher. We do these one time. Okay, so each one will be a separate motion.
I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Jeremiah Alvarez, CBA teacher.
Second, please.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yeah, I just wondered, John, is this the person who was the Spanish?
One of the 3 Spanish teachers.
Oh, we have more than one, okay.
They took a 3rd grade teaching job in South Bend.
Is there going to be a replacement for him?
Eventually, it seems like going.
All right, yeah.
Okay. Further discussion or questions? All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Approve hiring of Kendall Ford, kindergarten teacher.
I'll make a motion that we approve the hiring of Kendall Ford, kindergarten teacher.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion?
No, I think it was adequately explained by Ms. Nelson.
Good job of getting this information.
Yep.
All right, no discussion, so
Where's Kendall from?
She's actually, well, she's from the state of Washington. She graduated from college in Motorola, and she's been down in the valley. She's been teaching for 7 years and has a significant amount of experience in the Common Core, and actually was the leader in moving that district into the Common Core transition. We did over 3 years, so I feel that expertise is tremendously. And also, she's trained quite extensively in SIOP, which is Structured Instructional Operational Protocol, and it's for working with children of dual languages. So she brings a lot of experience.
So does she speak Spanish?
No, but she has the strategies for working with children of dual language.
So with the incoming, I believe there's incoming kindergartners that speak only Spanish, right? Is that quite a challenge, or how do you deal
No,
with that?
she's had, that's what was interesting when we asked her about her experience with immersion program. She said, well, not specifically immersion, but the population I've worked with is 85% Hispanic. So she definitely has the experience there.
Further discussion or question?
It's nice to see a broad net being cast.
Okay, if there's no further questions, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, approve the hiring of Randy Lindstrom, baseball coach.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Randy Lindstrom as new baseball coach.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? No discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 6, public comment, recognition of retiring baseball coach Pete Donald.
Yes, Pete has been with the district about 18 years, and invited him to come this evening, but he said he probably can't make it because he's going to be becoming a grandfather, but we might not have already been doing that, or he's either on the way to becoming one as we speak. So just showing a little plaque that a youth camp school made for him, just to recognize his years years of service. Says this award is presented to Pete Donlin in honor of his many years of service and dedication to the Basel High School baseball program. So, we'll be sure he gets that. Just wanted to say thank you to Pete, because we have been with the program a long time.
Right, and I appreciate all the work that he's put in. I know I coached for a while, and it is a lot of work. It's very rewarding, but I don't know that for, the people that have never really coached at say, a varsity level, I know that, you put a lot of time with little kids too, and that's great, but at the varsity level, you try to make yourself available for the younger kids too, and then the summer leagues and everything else that's going on. It's quite a schedule, I know that. So how many years have you been? 18 years. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I'd like to make, he's consistently, through, I won't say lean years, but, with numbers, consistently turned out a quality program. And also, between him and Ed Engelson, did just an absolute heck of a job on that field, volunteering.
Yes.
I mean, that's a gem out there, and he ought to be lauded for that. Anyway, he's probably watching the All-Star game.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, anyway.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think Randy Lindstrom came highly recommended by Pete.
Oh, yeah, he's,
So I think we're in good hands there. So, okay. Anything else, Lisa? Okay. Item 7 is unfinished business. There is none. Item 8 is new business. A is approve ESD 112 contracts for 2013-2014 school year.
don't we,
We don't have a choice anyway.
no. I'll make a motion to approve the ESD 112 contracts for 2013-14 school year with that in parentheses maybe.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
I think we should put it on an agenda item for next February or something like that, well before this thing. We just asking John about it. Initially, it's, gee, why would we not want them? Because they provide a service, specialized service that we don't want to have to get into and all that stuff. And it's been there for 30 years, blah, blah, blah. But, and we pay roughly $100,000, 90, which is for which what was the service for 90,000? The special needs, okay, special needs 90,000, but they get an additional 250 for that special needs from the federal government. I don't know where it comes from, somewhere. So that's about $340,000, which it would seem to me would be worthwhile looking at whether or not we can provide it, because we could even hire some of the same people that they have, for that matter, and do a lot better and maybe make some money on this thing. I mean, I don't know. That's just an initial thought, but to just blanket approve this thing, that I've not been impressed with ESDs in other areas, because they become just like this. They hey, why would you want to? You've been here for 30 years. Why would you want to change? And everyone just signs on the dotted line.
So, now John, they get roughly $100,000 from this district for the services that they provide this district, is that correct? Roughly.
I'd have to, I don't know all the numbers in my head for that, but
So, then they get, am I hearing this right, they get another, did you say $350,000?
Roughly, and John was just saying, John, go ahead and explain.
yeah, they have a direct portion of it that comes from OSBI directly to the ESD in the 250 range.
Relative to this district?
Yeah.
Seriously?
We
And they staff how many people here?
2 teachers, well, we have a director, and I don't know how many paras. 3 or 4.
And then
Speech services and psychology.
occupational therapy.
They're not all full FTEs, they're parts, but we have all those services.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they just cut some of the services or a position or two? Is that not true, or was that a granted position that Deanna was doing? Was that totally
That was a
separate?
granted position.
That was totally separate,
Yes.
not through the SD?
That's through the SD, we don't pay for that, correct? Yeah, position. Yeah.
So, I mean, even if they're getting 250,000 from OSBI and we're giving them 100,000, that's 350,000.
I think it's definitely worth analyzing.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, you know, where, they must have some extremely high administrative costs. Because, you know, if we're talking about 2 teachers, I don't think they're making 100,000 each, are they?
That's for all the services.
Okay.
We looked into several years ago, many years ago, and we found out it was cheaper because if you get a special ed kid that they can't handle when they can't speak, then you've got to furnish and transportation and everything else. And you can eat up 100,000 in no time at all. So
Well, that does,
it's
yeah,
cheaper
and that
to go
does
to the-
create quite an expense when we, like you said, if there's a student that we just don't have the facilities or the personnel to handle.
It's been analyzed nearly every year, and it continues to come out cheaper to do it, but it doesn't hurt to look at it again. And the reason we're sort of stuck with these contracts is they all say you need to cancel them by May of the preceding year. So, we are, you know, we don't know if we can get there even in time, but, so
Yes.
deserve another look into it.
It would be quite a number to tackle, I think.
I don't know of any small schools in the area who do not go through ESD.
Something does. They do.
They're not good on 13.
Yeah, but they're kind of unique. They have an early childhood center.
Right.
So,
In town,
yeah,
it's not part of the school,
it is.
it's part of the school. South Bend. Now, does Raymond and Valley, that's a tri-district, so do they share the ESD or do they do their own separates, do you know?
I don't know.
They're through 113.
Okay,
So the other schools,
yeah, I see.
they'll be the ESD.
So we're kind of cut off.
Valley's in it, EL's in it, and Waco's 112.
Okay, further discussion?
I second.
Yeah, okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries.
And we can put that on the schedule for next March or so.
Yeah, I know that. All right, item B, approve resolution 12-1307, hire Lisa Nelson as interim superintendent for 2013, 2014 school year.
I move that the board approve the resolution 12-13-307 to hire Vincent Nelson as interim superintendent for the 2013-2014 school year.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, discussion?
Are we approving everything at this point, or is this just this particular little part of it, or what?
We really should go together. I mean, that'd be my understanding, because that's, resolution is the confirmation that basically approves the contract and the agreement to
So,
complete the hiring process.
okay. Right. We probably should have an action item separate on. I'm sorry?
I think the only thing you have to do different, this would hire everything for the school, but for the 20-day summer contract, we have to make a get the motion on that.
Well, put them each as separate, so people will know exactly what was going on.
Right.
Each will know the motion.
Well, I think that since there's an action item on the table, I think we need to deal with them basically separate now. I would take input on that if you know something different. I would agree with that.
I think we'll go with what you said. I mean, well, make a motion to approve it as superintendent, and then, of course, we've got the contract, we've got 2 contracts.
Well, it makes sense that we're approving the hiring, and then we're approving the contract. So,
Sorry, for a second.
all right. So, further discussion?
Just, what do we sign, if we sign anything with respect to the next part of that? You know, the salary, I mean, where is that?
Okay.
First
You've
sign
got
thing
that.
is just the a resolution, which says, gives me the authority to pay the bills, make the decisions.
Right.
That's a resolution. That doesn't include the salary. The
Right.
supplemental contract includes the salary items and the job description. Then
That would be the second. That'd be
that's
item C.
item C,
Where is that? Where do we have that?
Under new business C.
No, I mean,
the
where is that?
information. It's in some of the papers. Actually, the contract is not there. The resolution is correct.
all of it was sent, but I didn't realize I needed to print.
Okay. I think so. What we need to do, I believe, is, I mean, we can approve this, but we're gonna need that contract here while the board's in session. I would say, so the board can sign that, whether if we approve it or not, I guess, would be the issue.
I guess I'd like to see what it would say. I mean, I'm sure it's,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I
I
think
need to
if,
say the same thing, but I want to see the wording, before we approve
and
it.
I think that we can speak to the wording in the contract on item C. Do you have that in front of you, Lisa? Can you put it up on the board? I think it's good in FC.
Yes, it's so big, I don't have on that. Make sure, you see the best on that.
It's all right. So I think we're pretty good to pass the resolution, but when we get to the contract part, hopefully we'll get that up on the board so that we can see it and we can address that.
Yeah, because the resolution just says she's now, has authority to sign, that's all that says.
Right. Right. So are you okay with moving forward on this action item then? So we're okay with that?
Why do we have two of these two resolutions, we just, send them away or something?
Are they both exactly the same or?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Now they both B and C are identical.
Okay.
two resolutions authorizing her, it just happens to be two of them signed, I'm not sure why they have two, just two.
Pass them back there, please.
Take one.
Yes.
I thought one might have been official. Sometimes they would sign two of the same.
Well, I think for some reason we just got two copies of it. They're exactly the same. Yes. One goes to the county, one stays in district. There's the answer we were looking for.
I have to go to my scent box.
Okay, so we need to pass these back to Art.
Okay.
We call these motion efficient matter.
I think so. Who could go to that contract? You?
What I've learned so far. Read everything. I could print it, but I don't know if this computer will talk to me printed in here because it's not based on this books.
That you can put it up on.
Yeah, it's digital timeouts.
All right, well, let's move forward on item B. Any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
I guess I'll get that guy out of there. Text.
Okay, so you have that.
This is the actual two parts.
You see that okay, Art?
Maybe we're gonna slide it back and forth. Or nothing good. Read that out.
Go for it.
Okay, it says under the authority of RCW 28-67-074 for current district employees, it is hereby agreed by and between the directors of the Mesa El Rey River Valley School District Number 155, Pacific County, Washington, Lisa Nelson, hereinafter called the employee, that said employee shall perform the following services in addition to her continuing appointment as a certificated administrator. That means, as I've already, camp principal. Interim superintendent for 13-14. Said employees shall be paid the amounts and given the benefits, including below, for performing the following duties. Okay, that's the Chris Burton one, that's not the right one either. Okay, I'm gonna have to go back and look in specific for duties.
Oh,
Five
Chris
things you
Burton.
wanted to mention on that. Small print. Easier to read. There's a little time out within the
Oh, no, I have that, I saw that, yeah.
read it, but that isn't going to be acceptable. Should we time out? That should do it. After the RCW session. Specific duties, so serve as chief executive officer of the district, enforce the provisions of the law and board policy, serve as the secretary to the board of directors, direct and evaluate employees, maintain appropriate channels of communication within the district. And this was put together with Chris Burton, obviously. So for those duties, says the district agrees to compensate Ms. Nelson as follows: $8,420.40, 20 extra days for the summer of 2013-14, which is the now period we're working off of. Half day in July, half in August. And for the next school year, it's $28,208.34, paid in full installments during the 13-14 school year. These are 5 personal days. It's a supplemental contract under the provisions RCW 28A67-074. It's not a continuing contract, but it has no provisions for continuation. That's the end of it.
One thing, Lisa, I think you should have in your contract, should be said, if you're not hired for 14, 15, that you could go back to your principal job if you can.
No, but she's not giving up the principal's job. She's still the principal at the youth camp, no matter what. This is just a supplementary contract.
So that's what we did with Alan, so if you get a superintendent, you got, so he can go back to teaching, you wouldn't have to go out.
Right.
But her title is youth camp principal, interim superintendent, or vice versa. So she's still the principal at the youth camp.
So, gonna be both.
And has all the duties there. And so she's going to fill those duties that you see there, which, from my understanding, we've never had a clear-cut job description of the superintendent, and now we do. And this just gives us kind of a guide, basically, to go by. I think it actually makes the superintendent's job easier and the board's job easier, in a sense, to know exactly what to expect of the superintendent.
Well, I didn't know what was gonna happen, but she's gonna be part-time, principal part-time, and I didn't know which strategy, so that's what I was,
Yeah.
reason I was questioning.
This additional, the attorney specifically said you cannot have two main contracts. If your main contract, your continuing contract is the UCAM principal, and if this is supplemental, subject to those provisions, which is not a renewing contract. So, yeah,
That
he's,
sounds good to me.
he's the one who decided, what that should look like, because, for that very reason.
Okay. Would you, do you want to explain how you come up with those numbers?
There's another sheet.
I mean, just off the top of your
Off the
head.
top, so, the contract for the camp is 225 days as a principal. And so, our current, well, if you just take half of that, it's 112 and a half days. Use 113 just to make it a little simpler. The superintendent's contracts are 180 days. So, you have 180 days minus the 113 days, which is half of my time essentially of the camp contract devoted to here, which leaves a balance of 67 days. I took the 67 days times my daily rate of pay, which includes the night shift, which is how I came up with the 28,208. It's what the amount that makes the superintendent filling that position in its entirety, which is what we've done before, which was 180 days. So that's how that number is. Just trying to put it in mathematical terms.
Any further questions?
Is there any language or how do you split the time? You know, how much time are you going to spend at the camp and how much here?
Well, the majority of my time in the day hours will be up here, and then the evening hours, most of my time will be out there in the night. Obviously, when there's not, board meetings or concerts or things that require me to be up here. But because we kind of have our program at the camp separated into day school, night school, I won't say I won't be there all in the daytime, because I will be there some of the daytime. I suppose if you just wanted a percentage, it'd probably be like 70-30 or, 65-35, something like that.
They have how many students?
At the camp,
Yeah.
right now it's about 90.
And there's how many here?
Well, if you're counting, could be 500 if you have to 500
Yeah,
if you're
no.
counting
I'm just
virtual.
trying to do the math.
Yeah, K-12 is probably about 250, 260.
Well, Lisa, we remember, but when Willie Sari used to teach down there, he used to be a lead teacher, that he used to that nice, if you get overwhelmed and you can't keep up, you might look at doing
Yeah, I'm
something.
gonna have to have somebody do something, because I can't be at either place, 24/7 or 12.
Yeah, you're running chasing yourself.
One of them is going to have to take priority.
Right, yeah, I'm figuring the majority of my time will be up here.
Good.
But then also, this is a shorter window of school year than out there, we're still in session until August 9th. There's many ways you could have pieced it all together.
There was a situation previous years where that was kind of a low intention. Not if that's the case,
Right.
but as far as how many hours were spent in one
Sure.
place. And
Right. Yep, yeah, I understand that.
there,
Further questions?
Well, we never got a chance to really, we never did get a chance to renegotiate with Rick, either a continuing obvious contract or a new contract, because of what occurred. So we can get a chance to really talk about his salary or any additional duties that we might have wanted him to address or accept. And so this is the first time we get a chance to even talk about what the school is willing to pay for this position. What in the past is the past, and now we get to discuss it. If we try to figure it out based upon days or hours, to me that makes it complicated. Either you have a job to do, we've described it there, how much, well, you want to do it for for that, rather than trying to get up and come up with number of days and so forth. I mean, at the rate of $421 a day, you know, that's, let's put it this way, we got a salary of $94,700, we have a 20 summer days of $8,400, we have a superintendent additional 67 days of 28,000, that's 131,358. Add benefits for medical insurance and retirement, that's 28,800. So she would be receiving $160,000 from this district and or from the state, let's put it that way. I would have said the same thing with Rick. I think we were paying him too much, and I wanted to see what we could do to reduce it. I think this is a lot of money, and I don't think it looks particularly good to have the district willing to pay this amount of money for what is arguably a fabulous location to work and a great job. I just think overall, to go on what we're already paying and then just add to it, to me just says, well, hey, yeah, where can we sign? We can afford it, let's pay it.
Well, but the thing is, we're paying practically $200,000 prior to this for 2 administrators. And there was no problem with that. I mean, it may have been.
Well, there was going to be a problem. I was going
Well,
to raise it.
that's fine, but the problem is you're not going to get somebody to come in here as a superintendent for probably less than $90,000. You might get one for 85 or 80, but from what I've researched, you're going to have a pretty difficult time getting somebody in here for much less.
You're not gonna get one for 80 or 90,000.
So probably
It's gonna be over 100,000.
to get a
So
full-time.
when you put principal and superintendent wages on there,
But the history we've had with outside superintendents, who's gonna wanna take this for less than 120?
I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, I understand exactly what you're saying. But if you look at it from another perspective, the district is probably saving, I don't like some rough numbers, of probably about $17,000 this next school year by Lisa pulling double duty. Now, it's asking a lot of one person and some other people around her to do, and it's going to be a daunting task. Is that a lot of money to be paying one person? Yeah, it is. But it's a heck of a lot of work, too.
Well, I recall the rationale for making all this big change, there was not going to be any additional cost. I heard that right from you, Con.
There is none. We're saving $17,000.
We're paying more than what we're paying.
No, we're paying less. How do you figure we're paying more?
28,000 plus 8,000.
Yeah, but we were already committed to $90,000 to Rick's pass.
I know.
Plus
For that year, we're only paying him $45,000, she's getting 28, okay? And so if you do the math on that, it's 17,000, I do believe, I don't have a calculator here, difference. I mean, anybody here is fine to correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe my math is wrong, I don't know.
Well, I frankly, in looking at the functions of this district and including the camp, I think, receiving, the state's paying a total, including all benefits and so forth, $174,000. And we're authorizing it. I don't know if you've looked at that number before, but that's what the total is.
I know exactly what it is.
And
Actually, my number was 167, I didn't have the other $7,000 or whatever that you're projecting into that.
I mean, and this is nothing against Lisa. I'm not talking about Lisa, the person.
No, I
I'm
understand.
just talking about how much we're spending on this. And it just seems like an incredible amount of money that for an area whose the average, what is it? We've got an average salary here probably in the 30s or 40s. And we just had a bond issue that failed for various reasons. I'm not sure this is going to be a good.
Well, your average person is making $30,000 a year is not in charge of 2 educational facilities either.
Okay.
I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples here, you got to understand that I don't understand your math that we're actually paying out more. I don't get that. I would like to actually have you show me that.
No, you said that if Rick leaves, we're not going to be paying any more dollars.
Exactly, we're paying less.
But
But if you take with counting what we have to pay past for leaving, it's gonna be, we'll break even, or we'll probably be close to it. take one person out, and all, you know, he gets benefits this year, but then after next year, he won't have it. But you figure 45,000, what he's getting, but between the 60, that puts it 200,000. If it passes here with his benefits and Lisa's benefits and wages and everything else, it comes over 200,000. So you're just basically, you're not gonna save until after it passes totally off the books.
And you know, if Rick gets another job, then he's off the books, we don't have to worry about it. If he does, we're gonna need to tackle that piece next year, for the next school year. You know, and so, I mean, I would take input from the audience, I don't really care, that's fine with me at this point. But when I figured this out, it comes out to $17,000 savings and some change, one way or the other. Yes, Ed?
Is her salary more or less in, or contract in line with what other districts locally or?
As far as superintendent?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're talking about. Her principal's salary is in place. It stays there. She's still the principal.
Oh, I understand, I understand that.
All
I'm
right,
just
so-
saying, given, it's not unreasonable.
So Rick's salary, the 28,000?
No, the superintendent. The 94,
That's the principal
the
salary.
principal,
salary
okay.
is
That's because it's
94.
a longer contract.
I understand, all right.
Because of the summer school.
I mean, there's no really significant difference between the local school districts.
I can give you some examples. I have some neighboring districts if you want to know their soup salary.
Yeah, I've seen them before. I'm asking a question I already know the answer. But,
A normal superintendent's contract is for a full-time superintendent, should be 220 to 240 days. Some are 220, but most of them are around 240.
Which then you include 11 paid holidays, 15 to 25 vacation.
What is that salary?
It works less than 200 days.
Well, usually it's over 200, over 120,000 usually for full-time superintendent. I think Valley is right around 120, 125.
And that's kind of why we've opted to go with a half-time or part-time superintendent, 100 and whatever.
see how it goes for a year. There's no-
100 days.
But there's something else I want to say, it was kind of twist the words here. I've never bought into the fact that we live in a county where the average income is low, that should be tethered, or that's not exactly the word, factored into what we pay employees and, or, you know, management, administrative people in our school districts and also other areas too. I mean, quality people, you know, the person who teaches here or administrates here, you know, I think that they should be on a comparable scale to their peers elsewhere.
Well, I think actually at this point, you know, I've been remiss, and we should actually have there should be a motion made and seconded before we go into any further discussion. I mean, we're basically probably getting close to finishing this, and it's my fault, I should have maybe got a motion on the table. So at this point, I would entertain a motion for this supplemental contract.
We need a motion for something like that.
Yeah.
And you want the board approves something like interim superintendent contract release and that's presented for the 2015, 2016 year.
I will second that.
Okay, now we can open it up to actual official discussion. Again, I apologize, I didn't actually follow parliamentary procedure precisely, but it was kind of an ongoing thing with the whole projector and everything, so. Any further discussion on this?
Well, you know, it just, you know, I thought, in general, you know, hiring people without even knowing that what we're gonna pay them is one thing, that's what we did apparently. I don't know if that's the way it's always done in school districts, but I've never been in an organization where we decide to hire someone without knowing how much we're gonna pay them, because that tends to determine whether we want to hire them. So we didn't have that discussion, we just decided to hire. And so now we're having this discussion, and it seems like it's a hurried discussion.
This is a proposal. This is a proposal from the prospective interim superintendent. Now, I didn't bargain this one little bit. I brought this to the full board in front of the public because I got criticized for the last time. So I'm not going to go down that road again. So this is open for discussion, and it's not, nothing is passed. We can tweak this, change this, argue the fact that how she came up with her numbers or whatever we'd like to do right now. And that's why we're having this discussion. There has been no negotiations. I didn't negotiate this at all. And I made it clear to Lisa that this was going to be taken as a proposal by Lisa to the board, the whole board to make this decision. So I've seen these numbers prior to this, but here's what the board's seen. So the board, you've actually been emailed these, correct? These numbers?
Mm-hmm. I got it.
Email.
And so the numbers have been out there for how long has it been? I don't remember when it came.
Friday.
I don't remember exactly when the email came because I was part of the document going to the attorney. So I've actually seen it longer than the rest of the board, but I know that the board has actually seen these numbers for a while. So it is open for discussion. It is open to question however she came up with her numbers. I mean, that's if you want to question that, but I know in a recommendation from Chris Burton, he basically said that is a steal for a superintendent for a year. And he said, you know, you're going to have people who are going to look at it like, okay, she's getting this other salary and she's getting this one, that's a lot of money. But, you know, the real thing that I look at is the fact that she is still the principal there and still entitled to her full salary. She has all of her duties still there, and she's filling the duties of the superintendent here for a fraction of what we were paying her past. That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't look at it as a cup half full. I look at it or half empty. I look at it as half full. I think it's a win-win for this district, in my opinion.
Well, I was told that we were going to have trouble trying to find any good superintendent to work part-time. Like we have to go say he was on a 50-day contract, I don't know how many the other ones that work part-time. For a full-time superintendent, you're going to pay, we paid, when I was first on the board with Dick Ray Morrison and Rod Jeffrey got over 90,000 back there, and that's over 20, 30 years ago. So you start figuring 90,000 20 years ago, and then what they're paying now, it's a fair wages, which is not being honest, you know, real big, but it's, I think it's a fair wage for it.
I think this is a discussion that's going to take place in earnest when the new school board this year is up.
You know, I would say the next board that comes next year, if they don't like the contract, they can negotiate with her, whoever the new board is. And then they can negotiate, or they can come see if she will agree to a different change or.
Well, I would think that this contract, if it's approved by this board, will be in place for this school year. I don't really think it's open for negotiation. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I don't think the new board can come back and say, wait a minute, we don't like this. I don't believe
I'm
so.
talking in
Am I correct, Steve? I think I'm right. I think it's, if we approve this, this is what it is.
It would be the next contract.
The next contract,
Right.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this, like we said, this is just an interim superintendent's contract for 1 year only. I think it's, you know, in my opinion, I think it's a positive move forward in a positive direction. And in my opinion, it's a move forward in a good direction at minimal cost as far as I'm concerned. That's just one board member's opinion. So I would be interested to hear what the rest of you think. And for that matter, what the public thinks. If you'd like to add to this, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, buddy.
Is there any difference being at the youth camp as far as funding? Because I know the funding is separate. Does that change that equation at all?
I mean, is the salary contingent upon the number of students?
Well, you're gonna be splitting your time a little bit, so you're funded out of a different pot for your
Yeah.
job up there.
The cost to the district for the next school year to have me up here is the 28,000.
That's the difference, that the youth camp is not gonna be paying, that the district would be paying, is that what you're saying?
Well, the district paid, you know, the youth camp paid, 40,000 toward the superintendent's salary. Or
Not as far as I know.
he pays something toward that, I don't know
Well,
what it is.
the public school can take indirects, which is 4% of the amount of revenue that the camp gets through its portion. So I believe that's around 40,000. It's for general fund purposes, it can be used for anything.
Yeah, Steve, yeah, Lisa, could you maybe clarify, I thought what you said when you were going through your analysis of how you came up with your cost and the days was that you used the principal's daily rate on days for the superintendent supplement.
Right, I didn't, typically if you become a superintendent over a principal, there is an increase in your pay. I just use my regular rate. I didn't use, like for example, the rate Dr. Cass would have received. I just used my current.
So what's the difference?
Well, it's about 80, I'm 421 a day, he was 500, and if you counted his mileage, probably 513 or 5 something.
That's a big difference too. Her contract
That's, yeah, based on her rate.
is
225.
So you're basically offering to perform the superintendent duties at a principal salary rate.
Yes, my same rate of pay. I didn't jockey anything. Changes.
Further questions from the board? Or?
If you, Lisa, if you work 225 days as a principal contract, where are the additional 67 days that you mentioned? Who legally work?
Well, those are the days, if you take half of it, 224, just about, or 225 days is split. And if you were to say, well, you're half of each place, you'd be 113 days in each place. But the superintendent's contracts up here are usually 180 days. So 180 minus 113 is where I got the 67 to try to determine the stipend.
Except that you'd be working 225 days on your principal contract, because that's the contract that you have with the camp.
It was just a way to try to equate it into dollars to say, okay, this is what the gap, this is the gap that's created from having a normal superintendent up here for 180 days. If you took half of my time and split it between each place, that would still leave 67 days kind of uncovered, so to speak, up here.
Well, if you kind of look at it from a half and half basis, half here and half there, then it would seem that you could compute that out. You know,
It's not really broken down that way. I mean, basically, it's a supplemental contract, which is, encouraged by the attorney, because he said, you don't want your job title to say superintendent slash, or interim superintendent slash youth camp principal, because then when that contract's over, I'm out of my camp job then, because you have merged those jobs into one interim then contract. So there's no protection for me to do it that way. And so he said, you really need to be operating off of a supplemental contract for the soup role, because that's only a one-year interim agreement. But also, I think I see what you're saying, while you're going to reduce your camp days time here, but, if we're going to look at that, then we should also then consider the soup job as a soup contract would actually be, which would raise the daily rate, which usually every superintendent contract I reviewed, except Maysville, offers, many vacation days, all the paid holidays, mileage. So I took out the mileage that Rick received, we took out the cell phone allowance and just cut it down to, okay, how many days would there be a gap between half of my camp time and 180 of the soup, which So I took out a lot of things to just try to come up with a reasonable figure to get through the year that would still save the district money over if Rick were still here and I had my regular contract. So that's how that was.
But would you be willing to save us even more money?
No, frankly, no. I'm at pretty much bottom. I mean, I already work more than a regular day at the camp already. And so,
Is the camp really a full-time job?
yeah, we have school from 9 in the morning until 9, 11 at night.
I know, but I mean,
And you
for your position, I mean, is it really that, I mean, it can't, it must not be, because you'd be able to take this job as well.
Well, you also have to realize I'm doing the principal duties there, I'm evaluating staff, I do the master schedule, I do counseling with students, we do graduation planning. I mean, it's not just principal job there because we don't have a counselor, we don't have those other positions. So, I mean, I think it's full-time. In fact, they used to have a day school and a night principal. We've had 2 principals there for many years. And I've been doing both, and that does stay in the camp. And there comes a point where, at some point, it's like, those things need to pan out really well.
Further questions, discussion? Anything else from the audience? I appreciate the questions, though, actually, that was great questions, thank you. All right, if there's no further discussion, we'll take this to a vote. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries, and we will, we'll need to have that contract printed and brought to us prior to review. Actually, can you help me with this, Steve? Can we take a small recess or something to address
Recess
that
anytime you want.
and just have her go print that?
Sure.
All right, the board's going to take about a 10-minute, I don't think it'll take that long, but I'm going to ask what time it is. Okay. Maybe we'll just go for a 5-minute recess then.
I need to find it because it would be in
Put it after. And,
So that gives them
just print it for this one, it's only a.
if I get out of
Here on the desk, so we're good to go now. I'm not real sure why, does it show it on that you had up on there that, but when it came back from the attorney, it only required an employee signature, a date, and the board president's signature, and I'm not sure, apparently on a supplementary contract, that's all that's required. I wasn't even aware of that earlier.
Usually it's the superintendent signs the supplemental contracts, but I couldn't sign my own, so that's why it's important.
Makes sense. Okay, so is everybody,
But there could, you could just.
If there's a problem that needs us, we could have a special board meeting and express.
we are having a special board meeting next meeting. If we find something out between now and then, bring it back to us and so we can we'll sign it. Okay. Okay, so we've basically covered D, correct?
Yes, we're on the tuition.
Okay. Is everybody with me on that? 8D is basically in this contract.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Actually, no.
We need a separate
We need a separate,
motion.
we need a separate motion for that, please.
I'll make a make a motion to approve, item D, 2013 20-day summer contract for Lisa Nelson.
Second? I'll second it. And move in second, discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, item E, approved tuition rate of $5,000 per student for out-of-state students.
I'll make a motion to approve the tuition rate of $5,000 per student for out-of-state students.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion?
Do we have any response from some of the people who are thinking of bringing their kids over here regarding that?
I think
They
so.
don't want to drop their kids and drop themselves today.
So it's not a great deterrent?
Do you want to?
Do you know how many are coming from Oregon, coming over?
Our understanding is there's only 2 spots available, but I know of other people that are interested.
You could probably get more if you even more.
Well, I'm curious if somebody come from Oregon and say, well, we started, okay, you're gonna pay 5,000. And then all of a sudden it gets tired, well, I don't like it, so I drop it. So the contract, once we sign a contract with a teacher, we're stuck with it the rest of the year, whether there's kids there or not.
Well, what if we bring our kids and start them off? Do you think we want to yank them out and throw them in another school? Is another school going to be willing to take them mid-school year? Like, that's going to be kind of awkward for us too. It's kind of like when you get married, I guess.
Better for worse, right? I like that analogy, that's pretty good.
I know her husband, I understand.
Exactly.
I guess I'd like to understand if it's open
Oh.
to talk.
I like the fact that,
Hang on one second.
okay, there's students coming here instead of the other way around. Families that are willing to invest in our communities that for whatever various reasons going to the other side. I'm curious as to, this is, well, I'm sure we'll hear about this further on, why we're limited to 2.
Right now, we're up to 29 in kindergarten class, and that means that for the Mandarin part, they would be split because it's about 50-50 right now. But for the reading, writing, and social studies component, you have to put all those students in one class.
I remember this from the last.
29 students in one class. Now, it is possible that, and what I'm saying is that there are a couple who have moved out of district, and if that's true, and I haven't been able to find out because I can't get a hold of anybody, that we could potentially add a couple more slots. But right now, I'm going on that 29 number.
It just seems to be a little bit of a paradox, you know, we're enrollments, you know, we're trying to increase enrollment, yet we got a cap for one reason. And especially if they're paying 5,000 a piece, I gotta, you know, think there's some way we could work around that.
I've got a couple questions actually, and
Just
Go ahead.
because my understanding was as Mandarin, we were gonna get an influx, you know, or of out of area students, and now we can't.
It depends how high you want to take that number at, and we can put a paraeducator in to help the English teacher with the numbers, which is what we have in there this year full-time. And that will allow us to take, maybe a couple extra, but I can tell you it's going to become a union issue, to be honest with you, if we put that many kids in the teacher. With that young age group, I mean, I have to advocate, they do need that one-on-one education. So,
but,
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah,
but we also have to protect our district, numbers as well. For that part.
It's gonna be a
So the rules figured out, how you gonna work
What do you mean?
it? Have you got the rules figured out? Have you got rooms that you're gonna have the kids?
Right now, our plan is to use, the music room is only being used 2 periods a day, so that would be one room, and then the room directly behind you is, we were going to move special ed into there so that we could keep the elementary, in the elementary room. But, no, I understand what you're saying, and if we had, okay, to be honest with you, if we had the numbers, pulled in numbers enough to fund another teacher, then that would be a totally different story.
I mean, and there's no, the quality of the parents that are obviously willing to pay $5,000 a year to bring their kids over here, I think we should do everything possible to encourage as many of them as possible to invest. it's,
And I'm willing to, you know, support.
and that is something that the superintendent needs to, I would think, find a way to do it.
Well, we made the decision as a board that we were having. So-
Yeah, we might as well do everything we can to make it. as-
Now, I thought that I was told at one point that the immersion teacher could also teach English class. Teach in English, which would offset some of that if the numbers got too big. Is that not possible? Does it not work out with the immersion or something, or?
That is a possibility, we could look at that.
Does that create a-
Okay, the TCLP teacher, the teacher coming from the State Department, is limited to 20 hours a week.
Right.
So she couldn't do that.
Right.
However, the college board teacher could potentially do that, because she can have 35 hours of instruction. So that is something.
Is it space, available space, though? Does that create a problem then?
No, because they'll each have their own classrooms. So that is something we definitely.
But I mean, because you're gonna have to move things around just to accommodate what you were talking about prior to that. So now if you split, say, that class in the English segment of it, do you need two separate classrooms then?
We do have two separate classrooms.
Okay. So actually the immersion class would be the other classroom, correct? So you'd have your English-speaking classroom, I guess you would call it, and your immersion classroom. So if the numbers did get big enough, you could actually have the immersion teacher, I guess for lack of a better name for her, teach the English segment of that, which would allow us to bring in even more students possibly.
Bring another 20 kids in.
You gotta let us know, because
This is
This is
where,
why I'm asking.
no, we need to have this ASAP by the next board meeting or even sooner than that. Because they're registering, you know, they need to know by,
well, but if you wanted to increase the numbers, like it's tight to recruit more parents too, to get the word out, might be tricky.
Yeah.
You kind of need to have to pay for the teacher.
But I mean, even if we could get, say, 3 or 4 or 5 more besides the ones that we have room for, then you could actually take that 34 kids or 35 kids, split that in half and go half and half, which would be more, what am I trying to say? Teacher contact time for each student, correct? Is that the right term? But,
Yeah, there we go.
Especially in kindergarten level, that's a one-time program.
yep. Is there a waiting list? Are there parents that are waiting to be notified?
You mean out of state?
Yeah.
No,
We're kind of maybe getting a little ahead because we wanted to approve the amount first. They're sending out a flyer I think, tomorrow. And we wanted to have this information in there, so we wanted to take it to the board to approve the tuition rate. Flyers in draft right here, which I'm going to pass on here in a little bit. And so,
but that only was my first question. I had another question. So the $5,000, how much do we actually get FET for each student from the state?
For an in-state student,
Yes.
5,700.
Okay. And so how do we make up the other $700 to educate that student? Because obviously there's more costs with food service, anything else that goes along with that. I would understand the transportation will be from Megler
Yeah.
here, correct? So we would still basically have the transportation cost. So the number of 5,000, I believe I had a conversation with Lisa earlier, and that comes from what I don't know if it's FET or if it's a tuition or whatever it would be from Oregon. So we're going to kind of use that number to, yeah, please.
so I talked to Astoria superintendent. There is the RCW that says, you know, you need to be kind of working with your neighbors on dealing with out-of-state students. So I did call him and had a conversation with him because they have students from Chinook that go over there, they have students from Naysville. And he said they charge 500, or excuse me, yeah, be nice, 5,000. And so to kind of have a uniform policy back and forth, because some Oregon kids will be coming over here, some of our students are over there, that seemed to be a reasonable amount. Plus, you know, it's an incentive to try to get students to come over. We could have said 6,000 or 7,000. I'm sure there's a cutoff point where people are not going to continue to pay as the cost goes up. And so to kind of get us in compliance with what Washington law requires, if we thought if we were doing what they're doing, then we would meet that objective.
Am I the only one that has that question? I mean, I'm trying to figure out how do you, so let's say you multiply that by 5. Simple math tells me that's $3,500 that the school has to make up the difference for. And trust me, we want your kids, okay? But
I'm a business person.
it's my job to sit up here and figure out how we're gonna cover that extra cost. And can you speak to that, John?
The 5,700 that I quoted you changes depending on what the enrollment is. The
Okay.
higher your enrollment, the lower that number goes.
Okay.
And so
So it's a company.
it's economy of scale, yeah. And so, for example, an ALE student only brings in about $5,000. And so it just depends. If your question is that $700 per kid going to break us? Absolutely not.
I understand that.
Yeah. And so, but it's a legitimate question. Unfortunately, there's not a set in stone price tag that comes with the kid. It depends on what grade level they're in. It's a very complicated formula.
And I suppose that, you know, if this takes off and, you know, we get quite an influx and we have to adjust somehow to accommodate all the kids that want to come into our immersion program, I suppose this could be open for discussion at a later point. But if we get, you know, several new students, that's a bonus in itself, so.
You could amend the proposal to 5,600 for just this coming school year.
Well, I can't figure out this, so when you said, they said 5,000, I have a kid that was a neighbor right across the street from me, lived with Astoria. And did he live in there, so they said that he would have had to pay $1,500 for going to go to Astoria High School.
That could be.
He would, that was junior, he was going to be a senior.
But now, the
$1,500.
portion is higher for the higher grade levels, correct? Please, John.
Actually, yes, in our case, because we get small school funding, which is a whole other funding formula. It really depends on what grade level you're in.
The typical
Right,
cost.
but man, we get less for a kindergarten
Yeah, we're gonna get,
from the state than we get for, say, a junior, senior.
yeah, and that's changing slightly because the state just approved full funding for kindergarten based on what your pre-introduced lunch level is, and they still just missed that. And so,
And
it's all in flux.
It typically costs less to educate a younger child also.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm talking, okay, it's a little bit more on this end, a little bit less on the other end. Some compliance with our neighbors, which meant the RCW, which was my biggest worry, frankly, and then to be in the ballpark of what the neighbors are doing. Keep it attractive enough that people will come here.
If I could just bring up the issue, with the newsletter that we're putting out, we do speak to, you know, we're going to be sending this throughout the border community, and just myself, we're sending it to Long Beach and also various different places. And we do speak to, if you want your child to be on next year's waiting list, please contact Karen. And I think the goal here is to have enough advance notice during this coming school year that we can really set this program A up for success and really show everybody that, you know, this is a great program, you know, kids are going to school up, and so you can see the success from this first year, but then just have the information now go out widely about it, start to get a wait list, and then we can address the issue of maybe there are going to be 2 kinders next year because the interest from the surrounding areas warrants it. And I think just to do the program sort of step by step by step like that would be good, and then we can, you know, apply for grants to get additional teachers. When we were recently up in Seattle, they did talk about having sister schools, and that the Chinese government had actually been providing through the sister school program, you know, a free teacher. So I think there's a whole lot of different angles we can explore in the coming year, and that might be a great way to think about it.
Just imagine if that happened, and come January, we have a wait list of 35 kids. That would fund the teacher right there.
Yeah.
You don't even need a grant.
Even without one,
Yeah.
That's true.
What's the math on 35 students. I mean, because there's other costs other than just a teacher, correct?
35 times 5,000.
I can't do that math.
Well,
You got that one?
175,000.
Nice.
But I mean, that's a little.
That'll pay for a teacher, but all the other costs too. So I understand what you're saying, but, I mean, reality is there is more than just a teacher to educate a kid, obviously. So anyway, I mean, I think it's great. I think I would have been remiss not to ask the question of the $5,000 tuition though, compared to what we receive in our FET. Anyway, further discussion? All right, no further discussion, so we move and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. All right, item F, approve purchase of technology for NYC school, not to exceed $40,000.
I move that the board approve the technology purchase for the Mesa Youth Camp School not to exceed 40,000.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded, discussion.
This still goes in conjunction with the next one, I suppose, in a way.
No, not necessarily. What we're doing here is, because we often end the year at the camp with a surplus of funds, it doesn't become exactly clear how much until August. What we're doing now is getting approval for things that we do want or may buy, depending on the availability of the monies. And this, again, we're looking at a surplus this year, but policy, anything over 10,000 requires board approval. So it's not likely that both of these things are going to, item F4G, but one or the other, like we're getting, bids on the security system below. So we just have to have it lined up in the event that the money's there, and it likely will be, or at least one set.
Is this a use it or lose it type of thing? Is there any way we can subtract the money they owe us?
That has been clarified, and I'll kind of explain that
All right.
another time. They did pay us everything they owed us.
Oh, all right. Jumping on that. All right.
Further discussion? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approved security system for NYC school, not to exceed 40 grand.
I'll make a motion to approve the security system for NYC school not to exceed 40,000.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
How come they don't provide it?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's just, they buy things for the lodges, not necessarily the school.
Thank you.
It's a good question.
Is it in the contract with us?
Not for a security system.
Not specifically, what about for safety? Aren't they supposed to provide a
They
safe
provide
place?
us a telephone and people to come running, and then we have backup over the radio. That's the truth. They don't provide security guards down there necessarily on a regular hour-per-hour basis. They bring kids down, they pick kids up, but they don't necessarily stay there.
You ever asked them to put a security system in?
Yes,
What do they
every
say?
year. Well, it's not in the budget this year, it's not in the budget this year. But the one good thing about if we own our own, then we control it, because if they control the system, then they'll be using it for their own investigations. And that's not the purpose of this. The purpose of this system is to have our staff feel more secure.
What is exactly the system entail?
It's similar to what was here.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what's here, you've got.
Camera.
Yep, cameras in rooms, hallways, gym. And this is something actually that the teachers have asked for, which will require a memorandum of agreement with the teacher's contract, because their contract says you will not surveil them. Basically, when they're asking for it, that tells me it's a pretty much a necessity. It's things, dealing with a different clientele than we've been dealing with the last several years.
Does that should affect all the contracts as far as the teachers?
We would just get an agreement for staff there. And mean, they have asked for this, which, you know,
Can we get that agreement ahead of time? I mean, because you want it in the classroom, right?
there'll be cameras in the classroom. Yeah, they've already agreed to it, we just have to, you know, but we don't even know if this is gonna happen yet, so, I mean, we're hoping it is.
Is it contingent upon, if you get the money, is it contingent upon
Yeah, we're not-
teachers being up there?
Right.
in
Yeah,
MOA
and
or
we're
something?
gonna have the capacity to have it in each room. They would actually have to sign off saying that it can be on, you know, recorded, but the kids aren't going to know that it's not recorded. It's an awfully good deterrent also. Plus it will come with a monitor with a split screen that when they walk, you know, up to the office, they will see that, oh, there's camera, you know.
What about maintenance?
It's wired. What about the maintenance of it?
Yeah,
It's basically a wireless system.
okay.
I mean, it runs like you can log in and check it on your computer if you want.
Further questions? Discussion? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item H, approve surplus of 1999 Ford Taurus station wagon.
Make a motion to approve the surplus of the 1999 Ford Taurus station wagon.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
How many vehicles we have, by the way, that this, I know, I can see getting rid of this one, but do we get a new one, or do we have other ones?
We have at least 2 other cars, 3 other vans.
I saw a recommendation from Ed Abelson to surplus this because we just don't use it.
He has 139,000 miles and,
I think I stopped on it, I think he said it was used once last year.
yeah, it's just sitting there, paying the
Just sitting
tax
there,
and
yeah.
insurance. And that's the price of insurance.
Further discussion? It's moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, approved. Item I is approved purchase of iPads not to exceed 13,000, small school achievement grant.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of iPads not to exceed 13,000, small school achievement grant.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
We got the large ones, the small ones,
The regular ones.
regular size.
Yeah.
Where are these going to be used?
Expression.
What's the lowest grade that gets them?
No, actually, they are in elementary school as well.
Huh?
Anything else? Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item J, first reading, WASDA policies 3432, 4260, 5010, 6220. And these are just the first readings.
You might have other, you can skip through them.
And then do we have those?
Yeah, it's just doesn't want to work back, it's right. So, are there questions? You want me to just kind of go through these one at a time? I don't know if you got a chance to read them, it's just first reading, so there's no action on these. Do a quick overview?
No, I think that what we would like to do is to review these
Okay,
over the next month. We'll bring it back as a second reading next month, and then we can go over them at that point if we have questions or.
okay.
Does this include the non-discrimination and affirmative action, or a
Yes.
separate one?
They're together.
5010 is non-discrimination.
Has anyone looked at that, by the way?
I did.
I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but we'll have this information for the next regular board meeting, which it'll be the second reading at that point. And so then we can kind of, once we get a chance to look at it for the next month, we can kind of dig into it next board meeting.
Is this all from WASDA?
Everyone.
Lisa, did you get I got a notice the other day there was some kind of we got to pass by September 1st policy that the state's requiring. Did you get an email on that?
I didn't get an email on these.
It's supposed to be, I believe, because I got a copy of that.
Maybe you could forward it to me, it's possible that they're making the crossover of.
Well, they said it's a new policy, they were gonna send information on the policy to us.
These are the ones that came this month, so unless it's one of these.
I'll look, because I think I may have gotten that email.
Yeah, someone could forward that.
It was in the,
There's 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
they said the one that you recently sent them.
Yeah, and they're, required
Yeah, I think it
almost.
Let me just mention something about, just, you guys want to look at this. It says, I'll paraphrase, it says, you're supposed to, we should hire minorities and women and others that are mentioned. And then within a couple sentences later, it says, but your plans cannot include preferences based on gender or race. I mean,
No points reference, right?
well, no, let's say points.
But it was something about points, the state often assigns points and get, you're higher on the, I'm not sure where you're at, but.
I mean, anyone who, I would assume that anyone who reads this would have no idea what they're talking about. There's so many contradictions in these 3 paragraphs, it's unreal. If you create the required procedures to increase the ratios of stated classes, you will therefore discriminate against individuals not in the underrepresented classes. However, you are prohibited from discriminating against any individual. I mean, it's a common, it's whoever wrote this.
Their attorneys put these together.
Well,
The word is not convoluted, I think, very.
It honestly doesn't make any sense.
No,
It makes no sense.
if you modify this, what happens?
What happens if we don't do it? I mean, what are they gonna do? Drag us away?
I really don't want to find out because,
No, I, legitimately, I mean, there's stuff in here that I have a serious problem with, and it may not be the same that you did, I mean, to me, you pick the most qualified candidate, regardless of whether they're, have one leg and certain Vietnam and are blind, I don't know.
If you can demonstrate that, then you're okay, but if, you have to just, that's why you have your scoring sheets, your rating sheets,
Okay.
and ask everybody the same questions.
Yep.
All right, so we'll get a chance to look at all that next bedtime reading,
Huh?
right? Okay, so let's move on to item K, and that's just basically to inform the public that the next, there will be a board meeting July 23rd at 5:30. It's a budget hearing meeting. Then item L, the next regular, it's just a reminder, the next regular board meeting will be August 20th at 6:30, regular time. So item 9 is business office report. Oh, hang on one second. Steve?
Yeah, I got a question about K. Is there any chance the board candidates could get a copy of the budget before that meeting?
It's available on the 17th up here.
At the district office?
I guess that's tomorrow.
Okay, all right.
Will it be available for the public, Marilyn?
It's good right now.
Okay. So yes.
Anyone and everyone.
Okay, let's move on to 9, business office report.
Okay, so end of the month of June, just under 390,000. We're on track to good ending fund balance by August. You can't see that at all, but I will add, by the way, that this spreadsheet is available on our website. You're a link, you just have to go up to link district and the budget, and anyone can see it. Yeah, right on track as far as where we thought we would be at this point. Like Lisa said, we may be spending some money youth camp funds in August, and we'll know more about where we're at as soon as July payroll is complete. Just because we know we have to be able to track what expenditures we've made, what we're committed to, and then compare that to what our minimum expenditure amount its way through the system. And the legislature, I don't know if anyone has heard in here, but not only did they preserve ALE, where before we thought it was basically done for, as we know it, not only did they not make any changes in that regard, they actually increased the funding. And so, you never know what you're going to get with the Washington legislature. But we fared extremely well. And so, I'm not anticipating any enrollment cut, not that it wouldn't happen, but I think we're going to grow beyond where we were last year. And so, we'll keep an eye on our enrollment and hire teachers as we need. But currently, we're staffed at just over 2 FTE teachers in CBA. And quite frankly, we're approaching the limit right now, where we're at with that. So we could be hiring another teacher in August. Just depends on what the number is going to be. So that's that. Like I said earlier, the budget is available as of today. I just finished it this afternoon. It's actually, I submitted it to ESD 112 for their review, and we'll be reviewing it in the next couple of days. But the budget document's available. It's 107 pages long, and so people can come in tomorrow and get that. We will be approving that budget, hopefully, next week, I believe on the 23rd, so that's a special meeting. And so I'll have a presentation prepared for that evening, so you can see exactly what it entails. Also, we are going to have to do a budget extension for the capital projects fund in order to continue paying Sunset Air, and they very much would like their money. And so that project is going on very well. All of the geothermal tubing is installed. It's connected to the main building. And right now they're working on taking out those things, those louver holes in the walls in every classroom. And they're going to be re-sheetrocking those and re-siding on the exterior of the building. The heat pumps are not installed yet, but they're going to be. And so it's coming along really, really nice. But we will need a budget extension. And in fact, Marilyn and I were talking today, and I was in contact with Lisa last week. We're going to need to get an advertisement out in the paper and advertise that special meeting, because we will need to approve it. I'm already working with the ESD 112 to get that process going. It'll be very simple. It's not a big deal. So, seems like there was one other thing I was going to tell you, but I don't remember what it was.
John, what are we going to get in addition this year as a result of the McCleary decision? After the budget was passed, and I assume it was this large amount of money that is going into education with K through 12, what does that mean for us?
Well, one of the big items was the ALE funding. They left alone in the increases. That was a big chunk for me. So there was also salary enhancements. If you recall, a couple years ago, they implemented a 1.9% cut to all teachers and classified it at 3.9% for administrators. And so we've been paying that. We kept all employees whole as part of the contract negotiations. That funding has been restored. And so that's a large amount. Our LAP funding is almost doubled. LAP is Learning Assistance Program. Our transportation revenues are also increasing. I don't have the grand total to tell you what it is, but all of those items have increased. Also our NERC budgets. NERC is non-employee related costs. Those have increased. If you go to the OSPI website, and I can email it to you, or there's a pivot table that will show approximated impacts.
Is there kind of a rough idea that you have?
I think it's in the, I'd have to look, I think it's in the, if you back out the ALE, because it's based on what our enrollment was at, and we're not there at that point, I think it's in the 200 range.
That's pretty significant.
It is. It's going to help because it funds a lot of the things that we were having to fund.
Right.
John, did I read something in there about class reduction also
I don't think so.
in the legislative
There is K-3 enhancement. We've already been receiving that. And what that is if you're above 50% free reduced lunch in grades K through 6, then you qualify for basically it's a lower class size ratio of the funding formula for grades K through 3. And that's about $50,000 worth of funding, which is nice.
I was thinking, I was reading one of the emails that I got from that, because there was something to do with possible class size reduction, which would then in turn allow us to get more teachers, correct? Yeah. So, I don't know, I get so many emails, it's.
I got a question, John. On the hot lunch program, you told me that the hot lunch overrun was 72,000. OSBI said it was 89,000. I was wondering why there would be such a difference on the pay. It says like here, 2009, 2010 was 52,000. 2010, 2011 was 59 overrun. 2011, 2012 said 89,000. And a total of over 200,000. This is the figures coming from OSBI.
Oh yeah, I've seen those figures.
You see,
What's your question?
I was wondering how, like, you told Lisa it was only 72,000.
I don't recall telling Lisa that.
We were talking about projected cost for this year.
Okay.
That was 40.
Yeah, you said this year was 40,000, right?
I don't recall a 72,000 figure being quoted by me.
Well, that's what we were said with the hot lunch program. That's what I'm wondering if there was.
Did I tell you that was, I don't recall that.
40 is,
Yeah.
I don't know about the previous years, I'm just, we were talking about this last
What I do know is that,
year.
that the overrun this last school year that just finished was significantly less than the year prior.
Yeah, the year before.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see that big jump. But normally, over the years that I've been on the board, it's always over, but I said a couple of years we did break even or make a few dollars an Allen was in there, but that was it, when we had Chartwell. But other than that, we've never done that. We've always gone in the hall.
Right, and what Chartwell's, one of the reasons why we got away from Chartwell's after this, not this last year, but the year prior, is that they really increased their rates.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that we went from, what did we do, 89,000, is that what we said in the year prior?
Yeah.
I think this year was in the 40s, so that was a good movement. Still too much, in my opinion, but it's moving.
Well, I know when we went to started with Chartwell, that we had other schools that were involved, and then some of them dropped out, and that's why Chartwell was wanting to get out of it, because they weren't making any money coming down just for what schools were taking it this far.
Right.
It really depends who you talk to. There's some schools who have actually in the profit margin use Chartwells, and some, you know, so, I mean, we're aware it's an issue, it's obviously a place that we have work to do. We don't want any of our programs, you know, running in the hole to that extent, but, have to go forward.
So we made steps to try and increase that, and obviously, if you're projecting 40,000 versus
But much more to go.
Yeah, part of the reason also is our enrollment has increased. I mean, if you look at a couple of years ago, we were 30 or 40 kids higher, but that was a number that, and he's right. And if you have 40 less kids that aren't buying lunch every day, you're going to see a decrease in revenues.
I can see it would be, you got the same staff, but you just don't have the kids. But only what I found out, seeing my grandkids, is that some of them don't like some of the foods that they don't eat all the time. And I don't know, that it affects it too, if they don't eat.
Well, some things I don't like too.
My problem is I don't work. Okay. Is that it, John?
That's it.
All right, thank you. Principals reports?
So, as Linda mentioned, we went to Seattle last week and met with Donna, who is actually in charge of the Confucius Center, and we were able to get some materials for our program from her. She gave us some books and posters and materials that our immersion teachers could utilize here. And we also talked with Karen Pradama, who happened to be there. Karen started John Stanford International School for John Stanford, who was a superintendent of Seattle schools back in 2000. And his vision was to promote the international schools. So now, here, 15 years later, they're exploding in Seattle with new immersion schools opening up. The most recent is in Bellevue, and they'll be having a boot camp there, which they had for the past 7 years. And OSPI sponsors the boot camp, and they train and work with the immersion teachers. So they actually invited and are paying for our immersion teachers to attend this boot camp. And then we have 3 of our teachers attending as well. But as Lily mentioned, that the conversation surrounded getting teachers and how to maybe sustain the program. And they actually, Seattle School District has applied for the TCLP grant at least 3 times, and they've never received it. So, Karen's big question was, wow, do you know how lucky you are? Because we can't seem to get it, even though they've been very, very successful in their programs. So they did talk about developing maybe a relationship with a sister school in China, because that is how they're getting some of their teachers, is through volunteer teachers. So that's something we want to look at this year as well. And Lisa, John, Ellen, Lily, and myself got together and developed a flyer, which Lisa, you're going to show that during the resort fest, with information that we're going to put out to the communities, as well as possibly drawing in more interest for the program. So that will be coming around.
That's a small print version.
The teachers will be arriving at the end of July. The TCLP teacher will be flying into Washington, D.C., and Crystal Rance will be going there on the first week of August, and then she'll train also, and then she will bring Lynn back to ASL on August 8th. And I actually haven't received the arrival date on the College Board teacher, although I did receive an email from her last week. And she'll be flying to Los Angeles the last week of July. So they're coming pretty much the same timeline, just not knowing when that College Board teacher will be arriving. So that's where we are with that. And if you notice, we have lines out the parking lot. That actually was an idea that I came up with in the middle of the year, but we had to wait for nice weather for once we painted. Plus they resurfaced the asphalt because it was breaking up. And after Sandy Hook, we were looking at, the facility and what can we do better, and wanting families to be able to drop their kids off in a more secure area. And we want to lock the front door, and we do lock the courtyard doors, but we haven't been allowing people to park in there. And the problem I saw is that you have people, when you pull in there, they pull in willy-nilly, some will go around, some will go straight for the door, and all I could see was an accident happening. So yeah, we can't have that. Thereby, we came up with the idea of the parking lot, and so the company that found the seal code also developed that idea. What we want to allow is teachers to go ahead and use that, like we did 30 years ago, or whatever. We did utilize that as a parking lot, and that staff park up against the music building, and then leave the ones closest to the building for families, and thereby opening up the bus loop for buses only. And then if you notice in Lisa's report, one of the funding policies requires you to have 3 lockdowns, and another piece of that is you have to have an evacuation policy, which we do, but in practice. So that's a piece of that. Also, out on the far end of the playground, we had, and I haven't seen if they've gone in yet, but I know the men were here looking at putting in 3 gates on the far end of the playground, because that's another thing we looked at. We had 1 entrance into the playground, and when we did lockdowns, evacuations, what we realized was our kids could be out on the playground, and if an intruder came into the entrance, the kids have nowhere to go. The only way out was the way that they came in. And so by installing those 3 gates, one was going behind a big toy, and then one in the middle, and one in the other corner, now they can go out on the other end. So it's for safety reasons, and that's, we're always looking at how we can do things better. So the plan is, for the beginning of the year, we'll have the front door open for the bus arrivals and departures, and other than that, the front doors will also be locked, and we have a little camera that is actually installed there, so now we can, visitors can buzz in like they do at the back door right now. So I'm feeling pretty good about, the security and keeping up with that. So, and I'm going to TPEP training tomorrow. That's a teacher consumer evaluation. And tomorrow's the data collection. And then next month, there will be 3 days of training on how to use the tool. August 17, 18, 19, 18, 20, August, 3 days in the morning at Cruise. So, research on it. I'm thinking it's the night of the board meeting. One of them is. So it'll be 3 days. I know. Brutal. So,
No questions? Long day. Okay. Yes, I'm next. So, enrollment at the camp, 90 students, that's bounced up again. We were down into the high 70s, low 80s last month. We've had 2 graduations this summer, just had one, second one yesterday. It did turn out yesterday, that was nice. That was the best one too. No, kids have been out to one fire. There was a fire in Toland around the 4th of July. Actually, it was on the 4th of July. It continued on the next couple of days, so they were working on cleanup at that fire. And we just started the second half of our summer school Monday, so summer school ends August 8th or 9th, whichever day was a Friday. I think it's a Monday. Just keep on going. John has already talked about the heat pump. I appreciate Randy because he always gives me really good, thorough updates on what's going on with things. So I won't elaborate on that, because John already covered that. The other fairly significant thing we've been working on is the Lions Park. The Lions have an agreement with the district that the Lions are going to be disbanding by the end of the month. So they no longer will be providing care for that facility. That is a district-owned property. And so I've spoken with the superintendent of the youth camp, and he said he would be happy to, commit kids to going out there and helping, do some cleanup at the park and things. But we are going to, need to come up with an overall plan. You've probably seen on the school's Facebook page and the regular web page, the district page. We are looking for members for a facility committee. There's, lots of different topics on the table when it comes to school and facilities, and, that being a big one. Deciding, how to best manage the park. And the district owns some other properties. It owns almost a half acre over by the VFW hall by the cemetery. We expanded the property up here and purchased a small piece, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more. At one point, there was talk about putting the baseball field up here. So we don't have answers for these things, but there are a lot of facility types of issues. So if you know of people who would be interested in serving on that committee, have them give me a call or shoot me an email. We do want to have an active facilities committee going. I haven't actually gone out and recruited anyone for that yet. I've had calls from 2 people, but those are some things kind of in the works. But the Lions do plan to end that as of July. And we do need a work party out there. There's things that need to be done. It's been almost a month ago, I think, ESD came out and they come and do site audits for us and things. And so they have some recommendations for us out there. Overall, they feel that it's in pretty good shape, but there are some things that need to be taken out of there. And so we get to work on that.
One question. The facilities committee, the new facilities committee, I guess, the committee that we had was actually started out sort of as a facility committee, then changed the name of it to the bond committee. So my question is, the people that were on the bond committee, are they now on the facility committee? Or do they need to contact you?
Either that or I will contact them because of their position before. Just,
I think there's some that would like to continue and probably some that would, it's kind of like, okay,
it's kind of changed course now a little bit. It'd be nice if some people would continue on that, it also would be nice to get some new people, because that committee, the bond committee, really did sort of dwindle at the end. And, really, we've just been waiting to get the confirmation that the Lions are going to disband, and we did receive that letter.
Did not.
Did.
When you did, okay.
One thing we said, in July, Lions is done, Lions International has covered over $1 million on the park, but when Lions disband, it is,
Right, the district is a secondary insurance, and the ESD, is aware that we own that property. Like I said, they came out and they do site visits and make recommendations. So we're in contact with the ESD about the property. Something more definitive will start happening next week, or excuse me, the next month, because it's, they're not gonna be the caregivers of it anymore. So,
Well, right now, at present state, it's got some issues right now, correct? As far as it's somewhat tore apart.
they've cleaned it up a little bit. Andy's in here and I went out there a couple Fridays ago, kind of did a little walkthrough, and she pointed out kind of the things that were in progress. At that time, she said they still intend to, put some sidewalks in, but I don't know if that's gonna actually happen or not. My first thing is to get the park chips spread out, and then talk to the superintendent tomorrow at the camp.
So as of August 1, it's the school's liability. So at that point, we need to make sure that it's
I mean, it'll,
safe.
right, it is already our liability, but
Well,
we're primary
we're gonna be
now,
second
not secondary.
Yeah. So, yeah, Steve.
I've got a question about the heating system.
Oh, okay.
Is the quality assurance, the administration of that handled by the district, or do they have a contractor doing that, or who's doing the inspection and on-site to ensure they're complying with the...
Well, I believe that was, what's his name, John from BLRB, wasn't it?
The ORB is not involved with that.
Well, then who is, because that's who I was told was gonna be overseeing that at one point. No, BLRB, I think his name was John, was gonna be overseeing that. But since they're out of the picture now, I understand then that he's not overseeing it.
My understanding is that he's not.
So good question, who is overseeing it then?
We don't have the answer to this.
I don't have a name of that person.
So you want
I'll check with
to
Jane
check our
first, and see
system,
if I
so
know.
I don't. That's news to me, I guess, so BLRB has put it out of the picture now. Which leads me to a question, are we still on the hook to them?
Not that I'm aware of.
Because at one point,
And
we
bills.
were gonna have money, we were gonna have to pay them, but that was contingent on the bond passing, correct?
Pay them for,
Services rendered.
oh no, we paid them lots.
Okay. So,
Yeah, we paid them over $70,000.
but they're still not overseeing this project.
No, that would have been an additional $37,000.
What was that 70 contract for?
It wasn't a contract, it was just a time render for their entire involvement over the last year and a half, or however long they've been with us.
What was that, must have been a contract, I would assume.
So, wait a minute now, so if they were gonna possibly provide the services of overseeing this, but we rejected that apparently, so we're not gonna pay them that 30,000, correct?
None of this was my decisions, I don't know details.
I'm just asking for the information.
Yeah,
Does anybody know? Because at that point, then we need to actually figure out who's in charge of overseeing that, I would think. And,
what I do know is that the district is able to provide that role. But I don't know any details on that.
The district can provide that role?
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I do know is that there is a warranty on the system, and Sunset is on the hook to ensure that it works. Not only does it work, but it provides certain levels of efficiency savings over a period of 5 years.
Well, I guess what makes me a little nervous is, what do you want to call it? Overseeing can sometimes allow, what do you want to call it? Lapses or issues, or maybe not following up on the contract exactly, I suppose. I don't know that I'm versed well enough in the whole project to be trying to go out there and oversee it. I don't think that's my job.
Rick was handling all of that.
Okay. So apparently, this board needs to figure out who's going to oversee that then.
Start with Randy in the county, because.
Is Randy versed well enough in that to oversee that? And do we
He's
need-
working with them every day. I don't know what he's doing.
And we can at least ask him if he knows. I will check in with him. and see.
Okay. Because I think that's important that we keep that on task. Yes, Steve?
Well, my question was based on what I saw when I came in here and came across this ditch cut they've got here. They've saw cut that, they did a real nice job saw cutting that, but if you've noticed, there's a number of areas that are broken out.
Yes.
And typically what's required on that is for those areas to be resawed, so you've got a nice vertical edge, so when you patch that. And I just want to make sure that when the work's done, it's done properly. And if it's a lump sum bid, the school district shouldn't care how much asphalt it takes, but if it's bid by the ton, those areas should be decked out because those are damage areas. Those were either careless damages as a result of the removal, or they're overbreak from people driving through that ditch cut that should be driving, you can tell their delineation out there is all blown down.
Right.
So they don't have proper protection. So,
I can respond to that too, Steve, because that's one thing that Randy did, talk with the engineer, and he said that is not acceptable, and they are going to resaw cut that into a perfect straight line. Because
I've seen it done several different ways. I've seen it done where, depending on what you're dealing with, and here, it's quite cosmetic because it's the front of the school, it's what everybody sees. But what I've seen is where they just go do a small triangle in each of those overbreaks in some cases, but I don't see I think what John is recommending or saying is probably the right way to deal with that.
Yes.
To take it out to the widest point, right, and then remove all of that.
the other thing that he was talking to the engineer about was making sure that the gravel, the fill was compacted enough, because he doesn't want the asphalt.
How deep was that ditch, do you know?
I believe it's 5 feet.
What should the compaction percentage be on that?
95%.
There's a way to test that, right?
Yeah, there's Carlson Test, I just did a job, Carlson Testing Lab will come out and do that for $60 an hour. They sell rock, it's got state spec rock, I'm sure that's what they're using, shortest fall point. And so they got a proctor on the material, so that's not a problem, but the problem, they use a nuclear gauge, it's got a probe on it, it only goes down about this far.
I see.
You got 5 feet,
Yeah.
if there was no monitoring how that went in there, even in the absolute perfect case, you're gonna get settled in a 5-foot ditch. So, John indicated there's a warranty responsibility, and I hope it's more than a year.
Typically on a backfill in a project like that, is there, what do you want to call it, written record of levels of compaction?
If you have somebody overseeing the work.
Well, that's why I'm kind of
Sense
asking
of
the
all
question.
power.
Yeah, but,
I mean, I know that my wife's uncle is an inspector in Seattle, and when he comes to a site like that, and if they've covered it up before, he's been there, makes him dig it up. Just dig it up. I have no idea what you did here. You know, I mean, I would only hope that they would come back if they want to do it right. You would hope that the contractor would want to do it right the first time. That would be my hope.
Well, initially, they were gonna bore it. They weren't even gonna cut the asphalt. And that surprised us, because when I heard they were gonna cut the asphalt, are you kidding me? You're gonna destroy our, it's gonna look like heck. Huh. But they assured us that they would make nice straight lines, and so that's why, when it started slumping off, we said, wait a minute, that's not gonna fly.
One thing you might want to make sure Randy does is if they are going to in fact cut a straight line, if they're willing to do that, it might mean that they're getting paid by the ton for the asphalt. The school district should not be paying for that extra asphalt out from what's cut already, and that should be on them.
I think that there was cost overruns figured into the whole project, but. you know,
There were, but I think it shouldn't even come out of that. And I think I agree with you.
Yeah, no, that's just it's standard work that
Yeah, do I remember right that if there are no cost overruns, that money comes directly back to the school?
Yes.
So overseeing that project is critical, I would think. So, recommendations from the board, I mean, any ideas?
Yeah, let's have that information at the next meeting, and so they have clarity. I mean,
Well, I mean, I don't mind coming up and asking some questions, but I know that it's
well, you know,
my job.
Randy is a smart guy.
I know
And he's
that.
been around the block and he understands his stuff. I think he's got capability, but you know, usually you'll have a set of specs that they have to build a job to, and you have to be able to refer to those specs,
Right.
ascertain, you know, which element of it applies to the work they're doing, and then be able to verify that that's in fact what they delivered. And, you know, I think Randy would have that capability. The question is that what's going on?
Right.
And if it's not, then there's a real, you know, break in the
Is
system.
Randy up here all day tomorrow?
He should be.
Well, that's not,
Oh, that's right.
it's not your point at some point, but it's just a next story of something like that.
Do you know if that's morning or afternoon? I mean, I would actually like to come up, just talk with him a little bit, and get an understanding of, you know, how he feels about the project, if it's being done properly.
I think it's in the afternoon.
I mean, because the thing is if the project was bid to bore that, and then they cut our asphalt, to me, that doesn't set real well. Because, first of all, I would say that the bore machine is probably more expensive. I don't know, Steve, can you speak to that, of how much a bore machine is compared to just cutting a trench and?
Well, you know, it's actually become extremely cost efficient to directional bore. A lot of utility companies have gone to that. Salmon Creek Water System, when it was put in,
Right.
was all directionally bored, rather than, the contract called for trenching, and they bid it at directional bore. I think Big River did the job.
Why would they opt to trench it then? I mean, I guess I don't understand that.
Well, you don't have any disposal of surplus materials, you don't have any surfacing or paving or limited, you
But
know.
I mean, why would they opt to not bore it, I guess?
Well,
You know.
here it was, they felt that there were too many underground
Okay.
obstructions. There were a lot of power lines, and water lines, and sewer lines. And I don't know all the details, because I asked that same question, but
Yeah.
they basically said they could.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, John.
Oh, I know that.
We're at a point right now where we're just trying to get information. And I did notice the breaks in that so-called straight cut, and I kind of thought, wait a minute now, I don't know that a car just driving through that's going to do that. To me, that's probably broke by an excavator or a backhoe or something that's removing this. And so, in my estimation, in my years of excavation, although we don't do a lot around asphalt because most of our work's out in the woods, still, that's just a lack of professionalism, in my opinion.
A 5-foot trench cut, that's a deep cut. You know, if you had, you know, I don't know how long ago they did that work, but if it was wet ground, it could be just overbreak back underneath the asphalt, and then that then's gonna weaken this asphalt, and then they can failed, so there's all kinds of things that
Yeah.
could have caused that, but still, it's not the owner's responsibility, it's the contractor's responsibility.
But if you're, I don't understand, because that's not my line of construction, but if you're gonna make a trench, say, 16 inches wide, wouldn't you cut that blacktop back at 2 feet or something to prevent that? I mean, just to prevent the breakage? Or are you gonna just, because each time you come out of the hole with the bucket, you have a chance of catching the edge of that if you're not extremely.
Well, I mean, yeah, you'd want to design your trench saw cut big, definitely bigger than whatever machine you use
Yeah.
to dig it, so you're not doing that.
What percent are you done with the heating system?
I'm
What-
sorry,
What percent is done with this? How much is left to do?
well, that's a good question. Does anybody have that answer?
Progressing nicely.
Yeah,
Progressing nicely.
I think all they have to do is install the heat pump. They're gonna be putting new controls in each of the rooms and bring the new, software online. No, besides doing this type of stuff, taking out the louvers.
So the construction is basically done. I mean,
Yeah. As far as the installation of.
The overseeing is what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
So they
This.
could fix the parking lot at any time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Right. That was the first thing I told the guy when he said that they're not gonna bore it. I said, well, wait a minute. It's gonna look, I mean, I've seen patchworks or patch jobs on parking lots and they look like that. So they assured us that.
Well, I know that the underground utilities up close to the gymnasium over there looks like a spider web at some point, I know, from the drawings that I've seen. But I think out in the other part of the parking lot is rather minimal, except for the sewage lines, I would think.
You don't have to look good and bash the other stuff, they just, you know, you can't have inside all nice and painted and line.
Well, the other concern that Randy had is where they put the drain, or not drain field, the pipe field, whatever you want to call it. He's concerned about settlement there. And that's a practice field. They want to plant it this year. Well, the operator that dug the trenches said he wouldn't touch it for a year. He'd let it settle and then do it then, so. He is on top of those things, but I don't know detail. I mean, I'm not an engineer.
Well, I think that with the situation of BLRB, you know, whatever the case was there, not being there to oversee it, and given the fact that Rick's not here to oversee it, I guess I would have been, I would have liked to have known that all that was going to happen, because probably we made it, it's called a special meeting over that to get somebody to oversee that project. And if Randy felt comfortable in doing that, that would be fine with me, just as long as there was somebody that had the authority to go out there and chew some rear if it wasn't done right, you know. Like possibly backfilling those trenches out there. I would think that that would have to be backfilled to a specification. I don't know. I mean, it's not under a parking lot, but it is, you know, the facilities that we use for practice field. Anyway.
I do know he has been out there with those guys every day.
Well, I'll call tomorrow sometime and see if Randy's here, and I'll try to get up to maybe talk to him a little bit and see how he feels about the project. And if he has a good feeling about it, then I'm fine with Randy's, you know.
Well, I thought I went there one day when they were digging them trenches, walked back to him, and the guy said, I thought he said he's gonna hide and seed all that.
Yeah. That's their plan.
What if it settles?
Yeah.
Nobody skateboard parking space.
I'd be interested in knowing what the deal is with the BLRB.
We are pretty much
You said
over,
we paid them about 70,000 since they started. Under what authority were they being paid? I mean, what kind of contract? We must have had something in writing.
It's
Well,
either that or
I recall the board approving authorization to pay. I don't.
I'm sorry, I missed that part. What was that?
He was asking, what would pay BLRB today? He asked, under what authority were they paid? And I think I recall you guys
Well-
approving a contract.
I guess the thing that bothers me is that BLRB stood right here and said that they were going to be overseeing that project.
That's a
exactly
separate-
what I remember.
It may be a separate question, like, do you remember, I mean, before I was on the board, you had the arrangement with BLRB and everything. Do you remember, was there some kind of contract with them?
Contingent upon.
See, that part of it, I don't know. You know, I think it was contingent on the bond deal too. And if this was separated out, but once the bond failed, I think they kind of parted ways or whatever. I mean, I really don't know how that transpired, to be honest with you.
I think there was a discussion where you guys did approve and you were on the hook regardless of, but I thought it was
Yeah.
30,000.
Yeah, I do remember that we were on the hook regardless whether the bond passed or not. But I guess it was my thinking that the BLRB was going to oversee that project.
Well, I know
And
since
then
I,
John Wagner, I believe is his name.
John Wagner, it was in May at some point, John Wagner did call. I think I had him in the office, in fact, when I answered the phone, and he wanted to talk to Rick about this project.
Like May,
And
like
so
a month ago, May, or 2 months ago, May, or
That it was,
I guess, could have been a
it
year.
was in the middle of May, no, just a couple months ago, yeah. And I told Rick to get called, and Rick said he'd take care of it. I don't know what I don't know. All I do know is that they're not overseeing it, because if they were.
Right, well, I'll make a couple of calls.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Rick a call, because he's basically still on the hook here a little bit, if I read the separation agreement right. Pretty sure that if there's lingering issues, that he still has to take care of that, or at least speak to what was agreed upon. So I'll give him a call, and just talk to him a little bit, see what he knows about that, and see if I can get some clarification on that, and I don't know, I guess I have a bad feeling about BLRB standing there telling us that they're gonna oversee it and they bail on us, and we still pay them, how much?
70s.
Okay.
That was-
I understand that architect work is expensive, but still.
when did we last pay them? I don't remember.
I think our last payment was in January. Yeah.
Well, there must be something in writing. There's got to be a contract in writing, right? There'll be something in writing. It can't have been all verbal. I sure like to see it.
So much we get to see.
I remember in the very beginning, I remember seeing it on the screen. There was something in the approved. I just don't remember what the amount
There
was.
should be a record of that, I would assume.
Oh, yeah, we can find it.
It'd have to be.
Let's try and find that, whether maybe you and Lisa both can get together and try and find that. Marilyn, I don't know, do you know where that stuff might be? Because if they're on the hook to supervise that and they haven't been supervising it, I think there needs to be a discussion about that.
I don't believe they're on the hook.
But they stood here and told us they were going to oversee
I
that.
remember that.
And when did they come back and tell us that they weren't going to?
No, I think they said they wanted to oversee it. I mean, it was sort of a, oh yeah, we'll do that for 30,000. I mean, that's how I kind of.
You do remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
Okay.
I think Art asked a question.
But and
That was when Sunset Air was here
Yeah.
too, so we figured out through the bids.
well, remember, they have a line item for them with a 0 on it. I said, why are they even on this? And at that point, he said, well, so then it came out, well, we're thinking in terms of, 30,000. Well, this is nice to know. We're only, that's a huge increase over the 80 that we're already signed for, but it was very ambiguous, I think, extremely ambiguous, and it certainly wasn't, at that point, that part of it anyway, was nowhere in writing, other than that line item. So I would say that they probably did not agree to do that, but they would have certainly been happy to receive 30,000 to do it.
I'll see what I can find out. I'll get up and talk to Randy a little bit to see what his feeling is on the project, and hopefully we can figure out whether this project's happening like it should be. I guess it'd be interesting to know if they've actually tested their compaction on that trench out there. Or if they just know they're putting it in. I mean, Steve, is that something that you can, I mean, it's done in layers, correct?
Well, it should be done in layers, and, you know, if they used a hoe path, you're familiar with hoe path?
Yep.
You know, of course, with utilities crossing, that, depending on what it is you're dealing with, like sewer line or water line, you have to be, you know, careful there. But in a deep trench, and, you know, the other question was it the native soil that went right back in the hole, or did they use select backfill, which in a structural pavement section like that, that should have all been select backfill, because I'm sure that soil was
I think
crap.
it was, they hauled all
They
the soil
did,
away.
they did export it,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but even if it's quality rock, I mean, you've got to beat it, all right,
Right,
in lifts, you know, 8, 10-inch lifts
right.
to bring it up.
Okay. I'll ask those specific questions to see if we could actually put in 8 to 10 inch lifts and see what kind of response I get. I'll talk to Randy a little bit first and see what he knows. I don't want to step on Randy's toes. He may be overseeing this really good.
But, you know, just been my experience with Randy, I mean, anything that with the plant, he's on top of it.
I have-
He knows it inside
I have all
out.
the confidence in the world in Randy, and I would hope that, you know, he's been on, so. It's kind of sad that it's been dumped in his lap to oversee it, right? It shouldn't really be his job, I wouldn't think. All right, so is that it on the superintendent's report?
Yep, long you guys.
Okay, item 12, board member reports, future agenda items, anything? Nothing? Okay.
I'm gonna just ask you a question, you say you want to update at the next board meeting, you mean the August meeting, or do you mean the June 23rd?
I would say
I
that
mean,
June,
July.
I would say that July,
Okay, that's when we're doing the budget.
Update on the project.
yeah.
Okay. And I'll try to do what I can to at least talk to people and get a feeling of what's going on. Okay, if there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Will we adjourn?
And move to second, all those in favor say aye.